everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today is a beautiful day. We are here in the Washington, D.C. area, and we get an opportunity to talk with one of my friends and somebody who is absolutely inspiring and an advocate when it comes into the field of sexual awareness and her ability to tell her story. So, of course, you all already know me. I am Dr. Plummer, and I am the CEO of Onyx Therapy Group, which is a mental health company based in Washington, D.C., with 9 offices in 4 states, and we are doing wonderful, amazing things. The team really makes me proud. And today we are spilling the tea, right? So I have my teacup here. I am drinking some tea from Grace and Gratitude, which is a Black woman tea company in Bowie, Maryland. And I get to have my friend again, Melva. So Melva, introduce yourself. Tell the folks who you are and all the good things about you.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm so excited to see you. I imagine you sipping tea with us, and I'll just show you my teacup, which is a mural of one of my sheroes, Harriet Tubman. But for those of you that don't know me, I'm Melva LaJoy Jones. I am also based in beautiful Washington, D.C., and I am the proud owner of LaJoy Plans, which is a boutique events management firm that specializes in servicing mission-focused organizations. So we are all about creating occasions for organizations that are changing the world one event at a time. And we do some milestone events, weddings, anniversaries, et cetera, et cetera. And a little bit about me. Gosh, where do I start? Well, I'll start here because it's on my mind. I'm getting married in a week.
Hey, congratulations, Melva.
That's all I can really think about. So I was like, yeah, I could do this or that. But I mean, we're gonna spill some tea. But the tea, like the tea is I'm getting married in a week.
Congratulations. I've seen all the beautiful pictures popping up on Instagram and all the things. So I just like everything. I'm like, yes, girl, get it, girl. So congratulations to you and to your fiance as well.
Thank you.
So a while ago, I was talking to some folks and I was like, hey, you know, when I do the spilling the tea in April, I want to really talk to somebody who this month is sexual. I messed the term up. This is probably why I need to be spilling my tea. What are we calling it, Melva? It is
Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
That's right. Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I was about to say Sexual Awareness Month, but this is far bigger than that. This is about Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so I said, hey, I want to talk to somebody who wants to talk about it with me, who wants to share their story. And sometimes everybody isn't always open or wanting to talk about it. Sometimes there's still these feelings of shame connected to it, or sometimes folks are still in the midst of trauma as it relates to it, or sometimes they're even in the position of grief, right? Because there's grief that occurs. There's a loss that occurs when one has been sexually assaulted. And that grief could be related to a loss of perceived safety or a loss of actual safety. It could be a loss of body and body comfort and body functioning. It could be a loss in so many different areas. It could be a loss of trust, a loss of respect, and to the other person, but also to ourselves and to our society as well, especially in our society, because sometimes folks blame the victim, right? They say, you know, if you had done this or if you had done that, and for the ladies, if you didn't wear that skirt or you didn't wear this, if you didn't wear that bra and showed off this part, then you would be in a different situation, which isn't fair, right? It's not fair. It's not true. It's none of that. There was a wonderful book I read a while ago, a small book, We Should All Be Feminists. And it talked about what would happen in our society if we, instead of training women to be careful, we train men or people to just not assault. Like, what would happen if we were intentional in those different kind of ways? As a person who's also been who is a survivor of sexual assault, I thought it was great to try to find somebody who would be willing to have the conversation with you, right? Knowing that it's super sensitive and such. And so when you came up, I said, let's do it with Melva. You know, let me talk with Melva. Let's have a good conversation, especially because every time you and I talk, the conversation is always so rich. And have so many moments of seriousness, but also fun and lightness as well, which I think makes it easier to have some tough conversations. But with that, tell me a little bit about your experience. Tell me what you want to tell me, Melva. Whatever you want to tell me. Tell me. I'm ready. I'm listening.
Okay. So I think I'll start here. So my story, if I had to give it a title, would be sexual assault. And let me be more explicit. Being raped, being gang raped was an experience where I lost myself. Mm-hmm. And my life's work through therapy, through prayer, through support groups has been finding myself again, and reestablishing my worth, which never went anywhere, and I'll get to that. Reestablishing my worth, redefining my relationships. There were some people who couldn't continue where I am today and needed to be left, right?
Yeah.
And opening me up to this place where I am fully experiencing the richness of life, and am now positioned to be someone's life partner.
Yeah.
And so what happened to me, and I don't know who I'm talking to, was a series of things. And so at 7 years old, from 7 to 11, I was molested as a child by someone who was not a family friend, but in the community, we'll say that. Mm-hmm. And looking back, I think, well, what I know for sure is that experience didn't allow me to live a vibrant childhood.
Yeah.
Not because my parents weren't available. My parents are great. They are available, but we know what perpetrators do, right? They threaten your family.
Yes.
And so at 7 years old, 8, 9, 10, etc., I took on this identity of having to protect my parents.
Yes.
And so I lived with that.
Yes.
But I wasn't living. I was suffering in silence. And how it showed itself is through, and I've talked about this in a different format, pulling out my hair, which I would learn has a term that I can't remember, but a medical term due to anxiety.
Yeah.
It would show itself in insomnia. It would show itself in depression. And it would show itself as a young adult woman who became so untethered that if anyone gave me attention, I felt like I was the lucky one because I didn't deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So fast forward to my 20s, and that's when I would be in and out of abusive relationships, and I'm talking physically abusive, emotionally abusive, verbally abusive. And I found myself one day walking, minding my business, and took a detour. And that detour resulted in being gang raped by 3 individuals.
Okay. I'm sorry, Melva.
Thank you. And in that moment, the only thought I had was, of course, I'm supposed to be gang raped because of what happened to me as a kid.
Yeah.
It was all connected in my mind. And similar to what you said, I thought to myself, why did I wear that outfit? Why did I put on the good lotion?
Yeah.
And what happened next was I had people in my life who would ask a lot of questions. Why were you in that part of town? Mm-hmm. Why didn't you do this? Couldn't you have done that? Couldn't you? Should have? Blah, 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 blah. And so it took a lot of work, a lot of therapy. Yeah. I'm going to just raise my hand. I'm a fan of therapy. For me, that's what worked for me.
Right.
I'm going to say I had medication, which sometimes worked for me.
Yeah.
I got involved. I identify as a Christian. And if you don't, the virtual space don't, that's okay. But support, faith-based support worked for me. And I spent 20 years rebuilding who I was, who I've always been, which is worthy, and deconstructing who the perpetrators are, which is cowards.
Yeah.
And so that gives you a little insight into my story. And the other thing I want to say is that the story is not over.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people think you have this awakening.
Yeah.
And am I able to share right now? Yes, but I've done 20 years of work.
Yeah.
But does that mean I don't have trigger points?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean there aren't moments where I see something on TV and that's difficult to watch? As an example, I won't watch the R. Kelly video. I can't think of what that video is right now, but I know I can't watch it.
Yes.
So do these experiences change or shift how I navigate this world? Sure. But through therapy and through support and having a wellness routine, what I also know for sure is that those experiences don't deserve a place on the throne of my joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll just stop there. I'm just talking from my truth.
Yeah, no, that's what I want you to do. And I ask people after they share their stories, what then stands out for you after you shared? What else stood out from what you said?
What is standing out now is because it's been some years since I've talked about my story.
Yeah.
So there are a couple things. How hard I'm fighting not to cry.
Yeah.
How proud of myself that I am saying the thing and saying it to strangers. I have no idea who's watching.
Yeah.
And how that throne that I'm talking about, my throne, my crown, how I want to be #resilient, #strong, that is standing out for me. And I'm thinking of all of the people who took up space for me and breathed life into me. There are too many people to name, whether it was nurses, whether it was a really good therapist, whether it was friends who prayed for me. We don't have enough time to talk about what life has been like for me. That's what's coming up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So much. I'm sitting here so much. First, thank you for sharing, right? Thank you for being willing to tell this story. And again, not this story, for sharing your life, sharing your experiences with me and with whomever else is listening. Because we never know what is happening. We never know what a person is going through. We never know where they are in their journey of healing or recognition. And sometimes it's not an individual person that experienced a sexual assault or a rape. Sometimes it's a person who is trying to support someone in that situation, and they don't know what to say or how to say it or how to respond or what to do. So just the fact that you are sharing your light with whomever is listening is the gift itself, right? And it gets to help so many people that you don't even know. You won't even get to know. I do want to know, because you mentioned that you're sharing it today. What made you want to share it? What made you want to share this part of your life with us?
I think because when I was telling someone earlier today, I had a coffee date this morning, it feels like I'm coming full circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I went from I'm brown, African American. I love that, by the way. I love that right now. But the younger me wasn't really feeling it. And it wasn't, like Amanda Gorman didn't exist. Sorry, Amanda, love you, but you didn't exist. And the people that we would lift up didn't look like me, didn't have my body type. And so I took on feeling unlovable, undesirable for so long, which, by the way, like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting to wear the cloak of shame or doubt or all of the negative feelings. And I kind of feel like I have gone through this process where I've shaken it all off and I've whipped my hair back and forth and all of the things. This person, this complex, some might say broken, some may say this or that, but this human is lovable.
Yeah.
And this human can give love, receive love, and be a life partner.
Yeah.
And so I guess wanting to share the completion, or at least this part of the cycle, was important. The second thing that's important, and now I think I'm about to lose it, but I'm going to hold it together, is my father is very sick. I write about him all the time. He is very, very ill. And my dad's story will end with me because there isn't a plan for children. And how I know my dad is he always helped others. He worked as a janitor and a truck driver to put his sisters through school. He ate less so my grandmother could eat. Like, he always helped others.
Yeah.
And as my dad is in this season of life, and since we don't know what can happen to our health, I guess I feel like this pain has a purpose.
Yeah.
And if I can get through this conversation, and if I help one person, maybe that was the point of it all.
Yeah.
If I can, and I'm not a perfect human, I make mistakes all the time. I don't have a perfect relationship. Like, I am very much a work in progress. But I do know that the teenager Melva thought about giving up.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that someone, and this is before all this virtual stuff, but I'm so glad that someone said something to me that like clicked, so that I'm here in this moment and I can be a great daughter to my dad. I can be a life partner, and I can share with anyone that your pain is real.
Yeah.
It has a purpose. And there is a possibility. I don't know your possibility because I didn't know my life would be like this. But there is promise beyond your pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I am doing this for me.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for my daddy, Melvin, who I am named after. And I'm doing this for the younger me who almost gave up.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, yes, Melva. Yes, and to your daddy's legacy. I'm also a daddy's girl, so I know how important it is to continue that legacy and that the work that they've done. You know, one of the things that stood out for me is the timing of it, where you said a lot of this stuff happened at 20 or younger, in your 20s and younger. And now you said you've done 20 years worth of work, right? 20 years worth of healing. And so it's kind of like starting anew, right? You start anew, but with all this beauty and all these experiences. And so who you will be and how you will be from this point forward is like a brand new version of yourself, right? Like you don't have to carry all of the experiences that weighed you down or the trauma that weighed you down. And you get to take all of those skills and tools that you use to kind of take that weight off. And now you get to like fly in a different kind of way, right? And right now you're about to do it with your new partner, right? So there's the beauty of you get to live life new and differently, right? And how beautiful that is for you. Hey, girl.
Oh, no, I feel like I want to say, let the church say amen, because there's a notion that life stops. I remember my 20-year-old self, and now I realize people are doing the math, but if you ask me, I'm like 30 till the day I die. But whatever. But, you know, we always used to say, this is old, right? This is old. And what I realize is I'm so glad I'm old. Like, I'm so glad that some of the stuff I worried about, I went to Howard, like, you know, if I was, you know, you know, the things you would worry about, were you invited to this party? Were you at this thing? Blah, 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 blah. Like, none of that stuff, the older you get, it's just noise. Yeah. And now what's so great about life in this season, I'm going to tell anyone right now, midlife is the best life. I'm going on record. It's just better. I don't worry about, I don't have FOMO, right? I said I don't have FOMO. I'm not trying to keep up with anybody else.
Well, you are the Joneses, aren't you?
Well, they're trying to keep up with me.
That's right, Melva. Keeping up with the Joneses, baby.
But it's better. Midlife is the best life. I just interrupted everything you were about to say, but I just had to say that.
It's so funny that you said that because, of course, my kids are getting a bit bigger. My daughter will be going off to college next year. So she's at the age where she's always teasing me about getting older. And I'm like, baby, there's nothing like this life right here. You know, this level of confidence, this level of awareness, this level of self-assuredness, you know, it feels good. And when you look good, it feels even better. You know, like you're taking care of yourself, and God has blessed you with many things, including this beautiful melanin that we do have here.
Yes.
But I thought it was also interesting that you said pain has a purpose. I shared at the very beginning that I also am a survivor, and I see myself as a survivor, right? Like there's so much in the language that we use, whether we call ourselves a victim or whether we are a survivor. And to me, a survivor means that I have gone through and overcome, right? And that I no longer see myself as a person with whom something has happened to me, because I've been able to do something in return to that, something positive, right? So a victim is like you are just the receiver of something, but a survivor is that you have taken action with that and have found a way to move forward. And so I see myself as a survivor of sexual assault, many different experiences, much like yourself. And I remember also, like you mentioned, being a youngin' and being like, why me? Why did this happen to me? And, you know, what did I do to deserve this? And, you know, how is this going to change my life? And what's funny, Melva, is that I've taken many of those experiences and used them to construct who I am today. And it's not that I welcome those experiences because I did not want them. And if I could have that time back, I would not want those things to happen to myself. I would not want them to happen to my children. But I also made a choice to do something with that. You know, people are always like, hey, LaNail, how do you do what you do? And I say, it is in my belief. And part of that belief is that I've already overcome this. So I could definitely overcome that. right? Somebody has already tried to take the essence of who I am, and I regained that and I recreated, and not even recreated. Sometimes it was a matter of creating, because much like yourself, my first experiences was as a young person. So I had not even created myself yet. So it wasn't a matter of recreating. It was a matter of a new creation with these experiences, right? And so I think that's important as we think about sexual assault awareness. And I speak to the people who have experienced the assault, that you can take this and be more than, right? Like, people will label you and people will try to tell you what you did wrong and how you could have done it differently. And you get to decide whether you hold that or whether you create something new from that, right? I am a survivor and I will continue to be a survivor. And I want others to survive. And so that's part of the reason that it's important for me to be able to share information as well. And so how do we take that pain and make it a purpose? And I think it's a very intentional process, and it doesn't mean, like you mentioned, it doesn't mean that you're going to be void of emotions or intrusive thoughts or triggers, because, honey, the same way you mentioned that R. Kelly thing, there's certain things I just cannot watch, right? Or some things I cannot listen to, or things where I'm like, who said that and why'd you say that? Like, what is wrong with you, right? And so correcting people quickly around elements. So it doesn't mean that we are void of feelings and void of triggers. It means that we are indeed aware and then make an intentional action about what we want to do and how we want to feel and what we want to experience after that. You mentioned these hashtags: strong, hashtag strong, hashtag resilient. Tell me what the difference is, if there is one.
Woo! Oh, I forgot. You're actually really listening. Okay. Be careful what you say. I actually think they're interconnected. And I don't think they're, so let me think through this. So I think resilience is a daily exercise in living in spite of. So we're talking about sexual assault, domestic abuse, those things, but you could be resilient because you just got through this pandemic and got up today. Right. You could be resilient because you left a relationship that wasn't affirming, even though you've been in it for 25 years. Yeah. So I think resilience is an action. This is just coming off the top of my head. And I think being strong is a journey of who you become. So resilience is the tool. It's me choosing me intentionally, methodically, unapologetically, and I'm headed to destination strong, my best me. That's off the top of my head. Thanks for the push. Wow. This is being recorded, right? I'm like, that's pretty good. And we don't have a chat for anyone to disagree, so that's pretty good.
Do you see me? I'm patting you on the back now, Melva.
Yes, thank you.
Think about strong and resilient in a very similar path. I think about strong often being a label that is focused on an outcome, right? Like, you are strong. Versus the resilience is the process. Like you mentioned, the daily element of it. Resilience is this daily experience, this daily affirmation, this daily movement to get through, this daily movement to see past. It involves forgiveness of others. It involves forgiveness of self. It involves forgiveness of universe, or what we think the universe was doing or not doing at that time. Resilience to me is very, again, intentional with a different level of awareness, right? And strong tends to be the outcome. And it's interesting that we're talking about the word strong as we both talked about our melanated brown skin faces and bodies and stuff like that, because we are also labeled strong Black women. Mm-hmm. And I wonder what would happen if that was different to resilient Black women. Would it make a difference? Would it make a difference in how people see us? Would it be better? Would it be worse? Right? In terms of we go through processes and we continue to overcome. I feel like sometimes people don't always get a chance to back out of strength, right? In terms of, because resilience is daily, you choose it every day, right? You choose whether you want to be resilient or if today is not the day of resiliency, versus strength as a label, as an outcome is placed on us. And there's not always room to come out of it. What if I'm not strong today? I'm not weak, but if I am, what's wrong with it, right? Versus resilience, which again, in my mind, is a daily occurrence. But what do you think about that? And again, we're just playing around with these words, what it means for us and our identity.
I'm about to lay out in this chair. I think that's so good, because I think that when you hear strong Black woman, or the label is placed wherever it's coming from, I think it's dismissive, right?
Yeah.
It assumes you have it all together.
Yeah.
It's the reason why we don't seek out, I don't know the stats, but I think we don't seek out help and mental health support. Yeah. It's the reason why we're trying to keep up, and I mean this in a negative way this time, with the Joneses. Right? Where we have it all together. But I love this notion. I'm going to start changing my language, resilience, because when you say strong Black woman, what you're negating is the process of how I got there on that day.
Yes.
And I also think, I'm just spitballing here, I think that strong, let's say, white woman, strong Asian woman, strong, we don't hear that as much.
Right. Hardly ever.
So we're not given permission to feel.
Right.
We're not given permission to heal. Right. And sometimes our strength, we all know this, if we're being honest, is perceived as assertive or aggressive or this or that. And so it's an interesting exercise to explore, what if we were given the same chance to be vulnerable?
Absolutely.
And what if we were given the same grace? And we all know there's historical context as to why we're not.
Right.
But what if, because maybe the world would really see us fully versus putting us in that box. That's so good.
That's right. You better get it, girl. That's right. As you bring up that historical piece, and we're talking about, well, before I go there, I also love the fact that you brought up the hashtag resilience, and we get to have this conversation from it, because the day after a woman is assaulted is usually the day, or a person rather, excuse me for making it gender-based like that. But the day after a person is assaulted is usually that first moment that they choose if they're going to be resilient or not. They will have many opportunities after that. Every day is a new day. But that day, one is not going to say you're strong the next day, but we can feel the resilience the next day. Do you understand what I'm like?
I do.
So if we talk to people who have been assaulted through the lens of resilience, it gives grace for some days they're not going to be strong. It gives grace for the fact that it is a daily choice. It is a daily awareness. It is a daily process. And the result doesn't have to be strength every day. It is resilience every day. It is the desire to move on and to continue to heal. When we talk about the historical piece, let us also, because we've been talking about race and talking about gender a bit, and then as we intersect those elements of our identity with the fact that we are descendants of slaves in this U.S., we also must acknowledge that sexual assault awareness is a thing now. And I appreciate it 100% being a thing now. But as we give reverence to our ancestors who came before us, for many of them, it was their daily experience. Sexual assault was what they had to endure. Some of us are products of women who were sexually assaulted. Some of us are the products of a sexual assault, right? Through our lineage. And if we talk about generational trauma and ancestral trauma, there's a part of that travels with us, right? Like, you know, we carry sometimes the weight of our ancestors. And because we get to be our ancestors' wildest dreams, we get to talk about sexual assault in a way that our foremothers did not, right? It was their day-to-day life, and now we get to become advocates against this type of assault, and we get to do something about it. As we talk about that ancestral part, that ancestral element, and you talk about spirituality, tell me how the two kind of interconnect for you, knowing the resilience of the women who came before you, knowing the spirituality that comes from your sources. How did they create your position around resilience?
So I think it evolved, right? If I look back, I was telling my partner, my grandmother, my father's mother, Granny Ola, was of the brain that you just push through. You just push through, or you pray about it. And we were raised as, and still am, Christian Baptists. And I think what I have decided for myself, since there are more choices for my generation versus my grandmother's, and my great-grandmother, we know for certain, was a field slave. So we know she had no choices. What I've decided for myself is, yes, you can pray about it, but in my context, the same, for me, the same God that allows me to pray is the same entity that allows me to call and find a qualified therapist.
Yeah.
It's the same entity that allows me. So for me, faith, how I practice my faith, and I try to practice it daily, is through prayer, is through affirmations, is through supporting and uplifting others. But that doesn't negate the need for professional support in my journey. And so for me, I think in many ways, my generation was the first of breaking the generational curse.
Yeah.
We don't just have to rely on our faith. If you have faith, I think that's great. I have faith too. Yeah. But our healing is more complex than that. Yes. And I think that whoever you pray to, or even if you don't pray to someone, I think if we're really being honest with ourselves, is that we deserve a chance at tapping into all of the resources. And how great, to your point, that it's a thing.
Yeah.
How great that it is a thing. How great is it that there are churches that I know have ministries around sexual assault?
Yes.
So for me, I think I represent the shift from pray about it, don't say anything, push through, to yes, pray. Yes, have words of affirmation. Yes, go and do all of those, for some, you might say, ritualistic things, but also get the help.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because I do spend some time talking about the fact that therapists are healers, right? And many of us, this is more than a training that we experienced in 2 to 3 years of our graduate program. This is what was placed in us, and it is part of our purpose. This is why we were here. And so those folks, including myself, who are very faith-based people, you know, the same way God made the trees and the grass and the beautiful sun that's outside, he made a person that could heal, right? And so we are part of the process. We are part of the healing. We're not all of it. We're not probably the biggest part, right? Because God and our ancestors, our Orishas, our angels, whomever we identify as, are bigger than us, but we are part of the process. And so when people are not engaging in the therapy or not engaging in the healing process, then it may slow things down a little bit. It doesn't have to always be that every single person goes to therapy, but I also want folks to not just think that it's just one thing. we are, like you said, a complex system, and we all have our roles and our purposes. And therapy, for many of us, can be that. Talking it out, having someone listen, having that undivided, sometimes it's as simple as having that undivided attention, right? Where you spend an hour, or my clinicians might say 50 minutes, a 50-minute clinical hour, where somebody's just looking at you. They just see you. And the thing is when one has been sexually assaulted, we question, did you see me? Did you see who I was? Did you see the essence? Did you see, my behaviors? Did you feel my soul? And many times the perpetrator didn't, right? They were in their own space, in their own head, doing their own thing. And so therapy, just sitting with someone who fully sees you, just the fact that they see you can be healing. I see you. I feel you. I understand you. I understand your essence. It's not always just the words that the therapist is saying or the homework assignments that they give. Sometimes it's just the acknowledgement that you are here and you deserve this space and you deserve this time. And I appreciate you and you are worthy of that. And again, our ancestors didn't always have that. They sometimes experienced the assault and had to move on immediately. There was not even time to go and physically clean a body, let alone clean a spirit or a soul. There was not time to physically clean the body. And so as we continue to wear these shirts that say we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and we write about it and we snap our fingers and we clap, we must live that too, which means that we must go and get the support that our ancestors were not afforded the opportunity to. And we must choose healing in the moments that our ancestors could not, right? Because again, we get to live in a way that they didn't.
This life is a gift.
It is.
This life, my life, you're in the virtual space. Our lives are such a gift. And what I have found, there is no replacement or shortcut to living.
Right now.
There's no shortcut. You're going to have highs. You're going to have lows. You're going to have people rooting for you, and you're going to have people who are cheering for your demise. Like, this is the cycle of life, and it's still precious, and there is no replacement for doing the work.
Yeah.
If you want to live fully.
Yeah, which goes to this idea, this concept of living fully. I just recently realized that in my personal life, one of the things that bothers me are people who are glass half empty. I am a 100% glass half full person, right? And it's because, as we talked about before, we've experienced and have chosen to take this pain and make purpose of it, right? So even as we say live life fully, I think about the parallel of glass half full, right? Like, there is fullness in that, and it is really a matter of perception. How do you want to see it? Did an experience happen?
Yes.
100%. Absolutely. That is fact. That is not anything that can be debated or even changed in that moment. And we will go through a period of grief, or maybe even years worth of grief, or maybe even we will heal and then still have moments of grief. I know that my last assault occurred when I was also in my late teens, early 20s, and it's been a number of years, and I still will have a randomly intrusive thought at an odd moment. And in that moment, I still get to choose, how do I want to see this? And what do I want to do with this? The thought will come, and I cannot always control when the thought comes, but I get to control what I want to do later. And that is how I look at life, glass half full. Things will come. How do you want to see it? That does not negate the time of grief and processes and healing that will occur. There will be anger. There will be sadness. There will be frustration. There will be confusion. There will be heartache. There will be late nights and early cries. There will be, it shifts our interactions with people and how it shifts our interactions with ourselves. And then through all of those moments, we get to think about and decide, and what do I want to take from this as I move on to the next day, right? That is that resilience.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You mentioned your Grandma Ola. And pushing through. And I think that's one of the things that our ancestors gave us, in all fairness of what they knew at the time, this idea of pushing through. And it was a matter of intention. It was a matter of survival for them, right? They had to push through. And I want to clarify for whomever is listening, because I thought it, and I don't know if anybody else is thinking, well, what's the difference between pushing through and being resilient, right? Because they're both actions about moving forward. What are your thoughts on that, Melva? What is the difference between pushing through and being resilient?
I think pushing through is pushing down. So my granny was one of the smartest people I ever had the pleasure to know. But Grandma didn't talk about stuff.
Right.
So I don't know, I'll never know for sure, but I don't know that Granny was living a full life because she pushed away all of her pain to keep moving. Yeah. But I don't know if there can be a light or a twinkle in your eye or a fire in your soul if you never deal with the thing.
Yeah.
Resilience, to me, the difference, and that's not to shame my grandma, because she knew what she knew, just like my great-grandma. Yeah. But I think resilience is to look at that thing, the horrific trauma, the horrific loss, the whatever your thing is, to look it dead on, feel all the feelings, process it with or without someone, heal, and go on to the next day.
Yeah.
That's what I think resilience is. It's that intentional living. And I think I would say, again, #resilience. I think that's why I have so much joy.
Yes. Come on, Melva LaJoy.
I think that's why I have a fire in my belly, because a lot of people, so this is the best way I can tell you, a lot of people said to me, how are you not losing your mind, depressed about the pandemic? I'm an event planner. We all know people aren't having events like that. Right. I lost 98% of my business, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And what I said to folks, and I meant it, is if you've been where I've been, you know that you can get through anything.
That's
so
right.
Money, let me be clear. Money's important. I live in this nice environment. We got to pay these bills. But I know my trauma has given me the gift to know that I can get beyond my current and temporary, albeit factual, circumstance.
Yeah.
That's resilience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope, and I would love for that to be the takeaway for anyone who is listening. And the trauma doesn't have to be the same trauma as my trauma or Melva's trauma or anyone else who may be commenting or watching. It could be your own trauma. And your trauma is not quantifiable, and it's not to be compared to. It is what you experience as your trauma. This thing that happened that shifted how you saw yourself negatively and how you saw the world and how you perceived life. That is what, in the most simplest terms, what that trauma is. It is when your life is shifted based off of perception in a negative kind of way, right? And you will experience a grief in that trauma, and then you get to decide how you want to move forward, what you want to take away, how you can make that pain into purpose, how you can see that glass is half full. So I wouldn't be me if I didn't say, Melva, talk to me a little bit about this therapy, honey. So you, at some point you said, listen, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go on this healing journey. I got my faith in my God. I got my resources and my people praying for me and holding me up and taking up space for me. And I'm about to take this intentional act, this healing act into therapy. Tell me how you did it.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I did it with some trepidation because as a young person, I didn't really have a great therapist.
Okay.
But I knew that I had gone as far as I was going to go without additional support. And so for me, and I know there's probably other resources, but this is years ago, I belonged to a support group at the church that I was a member of at the time.
Yeah.
And I asked for referrals.
Okay.
And this sounds crazy, but I interviewed the therapist.
It doesn't sound crazy, Mel, but I wish more people would interview these therapists. Like, interview them. They are part of your journey, every single thing. You talk to one therapist, that's not necessarily the right therapist, right? Like,
true.
We try on our clothes. Why can't we try on our therapist? Okay, you gonna make me go in a tangent, Melva. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's so true. So I had good benefits, right? But also there are therapists. What I would learn is that at the time, colleges, and I don't know the programs, but you can also get free therapy if you don't have benefits. So I want to say therapy can be accessible, but I had good benefits. And I went, probably had 5 conversations with different therapists. And honestly, I let my soul decide. And for 2 years, at that time in my life, it shocks me to say this, but one of the best therapists I had, she was a mature, I would say probably, because she didn't tell me, but at the time, 40s, 50s. She was a white woman, and she saw me. And it wasn't about, I don't want to get it twisted. Did I need to be seen by a white person? No. I needed to be seen by a person who I thought had an ear for me and my experience. And at that time, that's who worked for me. And it was the best decision I made for my life. So much so that throughout my life, when I know I've gone as far as I can go, I work out, I try to eat well, I journal, I go back to therapy.
Yeah.
I go back to therapy because sometimes, to your point, I just need to be seen and heard without an agenda. I need sometimes my therapists of the past have said something that has left me or taken me to another way of thinking. And I just needed that jump start. Like I was so close, but I just needed that jump start. So that's why. And I've enjoyed it. So what I would tell anyone, interview, if you can, your therapist. I would also say have some agency over your healing.
Yeah.
I had a therapist as a young person who wanted to medicate me right away.
Right.
And thankfully, I had parents who were my advocate. But here's the thing, and I don't know if this is medically correct. I'm not a doctor. She is. But I would say medication is not for everyone.
That's
for
right.
some people, it's more of a holistic approach. Journaling worked for me. Having therapy 2 to 3 times a week at that time worked for me. Being in a support group. But as I've evolved, my healing journey has evolved. So there's no one size fits all, but I do know people are going to get sick of hearing it. Sorry, you got to do the work.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. That's absolutely correct. I'm glad you brought up the medication. I know we're going to be wrapping up soon, but I'm glad you brought up the medication because medication works for some people and for some people it's not. It's a part of a treatment plan. So if one is experiencing depression or they're experiencing anxiety or they're having traumatic responses, sometimes the medication is what needs to be interjected in addition to therapy, in addition to an entire treatment plan. You mentioned earlier something about the importance of routines. So sometimes we need to establish routines because that helps regain safety and predictability after one has been assaulted, right? Because the assault came out of nowhere and you need to get some more control back to create a sense of safety for yourself. And so the routines are helpful. The therapy is helpful. The exercise is helpful. The consistency with maybe a good support person, a good support group or team, and of course, therapy and faith and all the things that are with you. I love, as we're ending, I love how you said you let your soul decide on your therapist, and that is because that is soul work, right? Like therapy is soul work. So your soul and your intuition should be part of that process. And so when one says, well, I just found a therapist because they had the time and the availability. No, honey, that it has to be a little bit more than that. And if you go to a practice of which they are not willing to give you that interview time or that consultation time, you may want to reconsider. And I don't mean that as any disrespect to my therapists who are in the community, because I do understand that as for therapists, our time is also equivalent to our money. However, for our clients, I do want you to understand that sometimes you need to definitely interview your therapist the same way you try on your clothes, the same way you try on your eyewear, the same way you try out different teas or different drinks. You have to see if it's a good fit. And just because somebody is available doesn't mean it's a good fit. You got to date your therapist if you will. Date being loosely, right? Like, don't actually date them. That's unethical. Don't go there. But you need to make sure it's a good fit. So never feel that you're tied into a situation if you're not getting what you need in the world. So Melva, I appreciate you so much. This is so much more. This is bigger than what I even thought it was going to be. God is good. Ashe. This is amazing. And I'm sure it has helped and will continue to help so many people. Tell the folks how to get in contact with you. We know you have your big company, and we know the sun is coming out and people are ready to do the things again. So how do we get in contact with you for your story, for your experience rather, and for your company if you are taking on new clients right now as well?
We are taking on new clients. And so thank you for asking. The best way to reach us is info@LaJoyPlans.com. Info@LaJoyPlans.com. And then Instagram is the way in which I choose to communicate. Followers are important, but fellowship is more important. And the Instagram is @Be LaJoyful. So that's @BeLaJoyful. And so I would love to be in community with you. At any point, I take prayer requests. So anyone who wants to connect about this session or wants to dream a beautiful event dream, let's talk.
Yeah, I love how you said that you are changing the world one event at a time. I was like, oh, that's good, girl. That's good. Because I love to have a good event, love to attend a good event. It's soulful, right? It changes how you change things. So I definitely see the connection there. So folks that are listening, we'll make sure that we put Melva's contact information in the chat as well. Be sure if you didn't get a chance to watch this whole experience with me and Melva, or if you want to share it with other people, make sure you check out our YouTube page. It will be on our YouTube. Onyx Therapy Group is what you would search on YouTube, and continue to come and support us, right? Go and support Melva and her beautiful work that she is doing. Continue to take the information that you got here today and that you may have experienced, because some of it is not just skills that you learned, it's something that you experienced, and share it with someone else. Again, this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so let us be aware of the different ways and types that sexual assault shows up. Let us be aware of the different ways that people exhibit if they have been hurt and harmed in those experiences as well. And let us continue to promote healing for all people, especially those who have been damaged, who have been hurt. Damaged is not the right word, but those who have been hurt and who are wanting to heal from the process as well. So again, Melva, thank you for coming and spending time with me. For everyone, of course, I'm Dr. Plummer, and this was Spillin the Tea with Dr. P. And I loved having you here, Melva. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.